So we are looking at the dollar index weekly chart. We've been inside this consolidation, inside these two PDRAs. I'm looking at this week, that's last week's week. If we start moving higher, if we start moving low, I'm looking at last week's low. So we have sell side below 97.502, and we are still trading inside last week's range. This week we don't have really much news, but today we have unemployment claims, so it's going to be interesting how we deal with today. I'm looking at the daily chart now. I'm looking at we're trading at 98.259. We've gone above this relative equal highs by sell liquidity pool above 99.405, and then we came off of that off of this buy side and traded into this range. I talked about this swing low here, going into this range here, and then optional trade entry, and then we run high into the buy side, resting above 99.465, and then we've come off of the high with the swing high here. You can see it, we have an outside day here, and now we are trading on 98.254. So my interest for the daily chart is on this balances and efficiency on the daily. I'm not going to highlight it. I don't really want this chart to be a lot. My interest is on this basic. So far we've gone through it. The midpoint is 9.257. We closed here yesterday at 98.218, so we closed below 257, but is around the 98.2 area. So if we go below this inefficiency, then we'll be headed into this inefficiency, weekly inefficiency again, and then we'll see if we want to run this sell side resting below 24th of July is low. That is 97.126. So I don't really have a bias on the dollar index other than just looking at it, waiting for swing high. We had a swing high here, went higher, bias is bullish. I talked about quarterly shifts, I talked about open float, and we shifted market structure here. For the most part of the year, we've been trading lower. We shifted market structure here bullish, and now I've been looking for any swing low here. The next day, you're supposed to go higher, looking for the previous day's high. So we had this pullback swing low here, looking for previous day's high, ran higher into these relative equal highs. Next day, we go above the previous day's high, and finally into this buy side liquidity pool here, and then now we pulled back after taking out these relative equal highs. This is interesting. I don't really have a bias. I've talked about what I expect inside this week. Ideally, I'm supposed to anticipate CPI coming in next week, but I'm looking at this inefficiency of the discount. So let's look at the 1 hour chart for the dollar index. Well, you can see Monday is open, is right here. We've been in this consolidation here. This is due to interest of non-volatility. We are just trading inside this range here. So you can see this was NFP last week. We moved lower from these highs here after taking out the buy side that I talked about above 99.461, and we traded inside this range. So normally I look for relative equal highs, relative equal lows plus inefficiencies. I've talked about the inefficiency on the daily chart. It was from 28th of July, this level here and this level. We're still trading inside this range. So it's Thursday. I don't really have a concrete bias where I expect the dollar index to go into, other than this low here plus this weekly inefficiency that is highlighted in blue. So I'm going to go straight to Nasdaq, and then we'll talk about a few things. especially on the weekly chart, and then we'll go into interpreting this early session before unemployment claims come in the next 10 minutes or so. So weekly chart for the Nas 100. Before we started even trading for the week, we had closed right here. The closing price on the previous week was 22,761.4, and then we opened up at 22,759.8. I was really interested for price to trade inside these buy side imbalances and efficiency, but we didn't reach into that. Opened up this week, and then Monday was just a straight up day, and we are expecting a run now into this previous week's high, that is last week's high. So this is 23,729.5. So buy side rest above this high here. So normally what I'm looking for inside not really, I didn't have I talked about expecting price to start trading inside these into these discount fair value gap, but instead we're trading inside this weekly range, and we're going higher now. So this week here, that midpoint, very, very important. And so far we are trading into this premium. As you can see, we went above this high here. We're trading at a premium. It's Thursday. You know what we look for on Thursdays. Thursday and Friday, we are looking at the opposite end of the weekly range. That is, we expect the weekly high to have been formed by Thursday's sessions or Friday. We might expect something like a TGIF Friday tomorrow. So I've talked about this buy side above 23,753.6. From the higher to go and then we'll talk about what we see here. So Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday, you can see Thursday last week with what I've talked about. We're trading higher, and then Thursday last week we had an outside candle, and towards that down week, down day. Going to Friday, we also had a down day. So it's really ideal for price to start trading higher. I was really anticipating for price to come into this inefficiency, but you can obviously see we have a swing low here, and then you see yesterday, today's price action, we stayed inside Monday's range, and then you can see Wednesday's price action, that is yesterday we went higher. Today's session, we'll go into the lower time frame and we'll look at what we've done in London today, and you can see obviously we're moving higher. I talked about this bearish order block right here. This is the up close candle in all this movement before we had this movement lower. And I talked about if we reject this bearish order block, then we'll be a lot more bearish. We might attack this low here. But you can obviously see we've gone through it. We've gone through the main threshold, and now my bias is bullish. I want to see this high taken out. So in short, I'm bullish while the dollar index is retracing from the buy side that is took above this 99.44. So the dollar index is moving lower. I'm expecting Nasdaq to start moving higher and propel into this high above 23,726.3. So let's look at a 1 hour chart. So if you look at a 1 hour chart, these are daily dividers. You can obviously see the movement lower. My interest is on this range here to this range, this high to this low. You can obviously see we're trading it on a premium. You can see the range here, the equilibrium level right here, 23,221.3. We're trading at this premium here with this new week opening gap. So We're moving higher. On the 1 hour chart, my interest is on this sell side imbalance, buy side efficiency. If we go through this inefficiency, then I've talked about this buy side above 23,729.5. So you can obviously see we started this run higher on Monday. We had this run higher after opening up on the midnight New York opening time. We had this run higher. On Tuesday, I was looking at these 15-minute inefficiency, and then we had this movement lower. Yesterday's price action, we had a run higher again, so we are bullish. I want to see price headed higher into these buy side liquidity pool here about 3,720s if you round the figures up. So buy side right there. So we'll go lower into a 15-minute chart, and then we'll look at all this price action here. This kind of like a sell and buy model where we have accumulation here, and then we're trading higher. You can see how we find support on this new week opening gap here. And now I'm expecting a run into this buy side above 23,735.5. So far, we are trading at a premium. We're trading at a new weekly high. We had this weekly high initially that formed on Tuesday, but yesterday's price action we went higher, and you can see we are right now trading at a new weekly high, very close to this weekly high. So I'm looking for kind of like a premium market to be going short on, because generally, even from the high time frames, we are trading at a premium. So we're trading right now to 3,500s. Have this high above 23,542, this recent high. You can see Asia today ran higher, going into the midnight New York opening price for today right here. We extend this opening price out in time. That is 23,393.5. There we go. We have the opening price. We have 2 minutes until unemployment claims comes into the market. We'll go to a lower time frame, 1 minute, and then we'll try to see whether we can find a scalp selling short inside this into this new week opening gap. New week opening gaps are just phenomenal draws on liquidity. Every time prices are above a new week opening gap, we're trading at a premium. It's a Thursday. We're expecting the opposite end of the weekly range. I'm expecting price to start falling lower into this new week opening gap. Immediately, my eye goes into this 15-minute inefficiency. Let's highlight this. I'll also look at US 500, and then we'll try to compare the relative strength and all those kind of ideas. So I've talked about this buy side, this recent weekly high for this week. If we go above this high here, then we'll be trading at a premium, and then I'll expect a pullback. But right now, if we start trading lower, I'm expecting price to start coming back into these 15-minute buy side imbalances and efficiency. So let's look at US 500 before I go into the lower time frames. And we've had unemployment claims coming into the marketplace right now. So let's look at US 500. So US 500, we've been trading higher right here. We've been trading higher. We made these relatively highs on, and yesterday, even the afternoon session, I was looking for lower prices after seeing all this movement trading higher through this 15-minute efficiency, and then taking out this buy side plus these relative equal highs here above 6,353. So we opened up today, made this movement higher again, and now we've been trading into these highs. So in US 500, we have this new week open gap from last week, and you can clearly see how we've moved lower. This is a 4-hour chart now. We've moved lower, and then most part of this week we've made this movement higher after finding this support on this 15-minute efficiency, and we're moving higher. So ideally we have the buy side liquidity pool above this high here. This is what I've talked about in Nasdaq. It's the same ideas that we're talking about for these futures. So looking at let's look at the 1-hour chart. You can see the range. I've talked about this in Nasdaq. The equilibrium level is around this. Am I eyeballing this? Is around this inefficiency. And now we are trading at a premium level. So best case scenario, I want to see price rotate into this, propagate into this new week opening gap from last week. And then if we stay above this midpoint, this line here of this new week opening gap, then we'll be headed into this buy side. So that's my interest this afternoon. I mean, my time is afternoon, but in the New York session, it's in the morning. It's 8:32 right now. So I'm interested in these relative equal lows here, together with these buy side imbalances and efficiency right here. I've just gone straight to whatever that is salient to me and whatever that I look for. Normally, I look for inefficiencies and I look for relative equal highs, relative equal lows. Then I expect some form of session bias to propagate into these levels. So my session bias is at this morning. I'm interested in these relative equal lows because we are trading at a premium. I've talked about this already. We're trading at a premium. We are expecting the other end of the weekly range, and the week so far has been bullish. It might not be 100%, but we'll just see how this pans out. Look at a 5-minute chart. You can see we've been trading high in London. London opened up right here. We had this consolidation on the opening price. Where's the opening price? My OCD is flaring. So we have this opening midnight New York opening price for today right here. So we opened up in London right here. We made this consolidation here, but over in London today we moved higher. And this move higher started from 10:30. That's around in the New York time is around 3:30, and then we had this move higher the whole of London today. So this is a 5-minute chart. We had this swing low here. We moved higher into this new week opening gap. Very interesting. I've talked about this 15-minute inefficiency on a discount. If we start moving lower, then we'll be headed into this inefficiency. So I've talked about how I'm interested in these relative equal lows here. If you look at the bodies, disregard this week, look at the bodies, these are relative equal lows here. So this is the first clue that tells me that price has an interest for these lows. So for US 500, 6,356.5, that's our interest today. So I'm gonna take this here, and then let me put US 500 and NAS 100 side by side. So you can also see in Nasdaq this low and this low. These are relative equal lows here inside the new week opening gap. So I'm anticipating Nasdaq to be better at delivering lower prices. So another thing, we are trading above the opening price, above the Monday's midnight New York opening price, above today's midnight New York opening price. So the odds are on my favor. So my interest is in this sell side. I'll be looking for a trade to trade in the direction of this sell side. I know from the higher time frame we're bullish. I'm not really trying to go against the trend, but we are bullish and we're trading inside a premium. So this is important. So I wanted to look at a 15-minute chart and try to look at relative strength. So you can obviously see Nasdaq is a little more weaker. US 500, you can see the 15-minute chart is protruded to the upside. I think it's because it has an interest to reach into the midpoint of this new week opening gap for last week, or if not, the whole of this new week opening gap. So we'll have to see that from a lower time frame perspective. So we've just opened the market. Unemployment claims have come into the marketplace right here. I'm going to highlight the opening price for the morning session at 8:30 New York. 8:30 New York is 3:30 my time. So we're gonna highlight this opening price, and then we want to see whatever price does going forward. So we're also looking at Nasdaq. We have today's midnight New York opening price right here, 23,393.7. We're looking at unemployment claims. We opened up right here. So far, there's nothing really that has piqued my interest other than price trading at a premium only. So we have this old high here. If we go above this high, this is also a buy side liquidity pool. Resting above this high. So 6,404.9. Just had to do something. So I'm going to look at also the dollar index and try and see what unemployment claims has done. I guess it does not really done a lot. This has been a slow week. Normally, I don't really like weeks that CPI comes after a week that has no high impact news events like this week. Last week we had NFP. I was really expecting CPI to be inside this week on a Tuesday and then maybe skip one day and then PPI, or have CPI on a Wednesday, then PPI on a Thursday, or that kind of event. But we had NFP last week. This week there has been not really any high impact news events for this week. And next week is when we'll have CPI. So next week will be really interesting, and we'll see whatever trades that we'll have then. So I want to look at the calendar for this for the whole of this week, from Monday's trading to tomorrow's trading. So Monday we had We had a bank holiday for the Canadian dollar. We had no high impact news for the dollar index. On Tuesday, we had ISM services at 5 p.m. On Wednesday, we had no news. That was yesterday. We had no news. And then today we have obviously unemployment claims is on a Thursday. It's Thursday. And we'll have President Trump's speech at 11 p.m. That is the market on close. And then tomorrow we will not have any high impact news for the dollar index other than the Canadian dollar's unemployment rate and unemployment change. Canadian dollar also affects the dollar index and the market in general. So these are very tomorrow will be very interesting also. So you can clearly see that there's nothing really much happening with price, even though we have these objectives that are further away. You can see the buy side. You can see the buy side here. It's really difficult to anticipate volatility, and people obviously blow accounts on weeks like this. There's nothing really much. You don't really expect your your buyers to pan out. I mean, you expect your buyers to pan out, but it's not going to do really anything much. I want to talk about what I saw yesterday in Nasdaq. Yesterday with the market on close orders macro. Before you get into 350 and look at what these opening macro wants to do with these two price points here. So we're looking at yesterday's range. Yesterday, I was looking at this high here in the index futures opening price. I pointed out these first presented a value gap. I pointed out a run into the relative equal highs that were here. That was very nice run on buy side. And then we had this movement higher. And then price moved lower into a deeper discount. And then they bought it. And then we had this movement higher throughout the entire morning session. So we went through this. This was the opening range gap from Tuesday's price action. So we went through it. You can obviously see it right here in the morning session yesterday, New York morning session. And then in the afternoon session, I came and I found price above Tuesday's high. So my idea was we're trading at a premium. We're trading inside the afternoon session, and my interest was really it was really diverted between these two price points. The midpoint of these yesterday, I mean last week's new week opening gap and the opening range gap from Tuesday. So these are two PDA raised on a premium and discount respectively. But I was looking at we're really trading at a premium. I'm looking at price forming a daily high around this area, and I was looking for the power of 3 in regards to the daily range. So that is we opened right here. We have these Judah swings below the opening price, and then we have the high, the daily high right here, and then you can see how we move from the daily high into the daily close. So that's what I was looking for in the afternoon session. So we'll go into a lower time frame 1 minute, and then we'll try to look at what transpired on yesterday, 6th of August. So I'll briefly talk about this morning session. We opened up right here with the index futures open. We had ISM services at 5 p.m. That is the silver bullet. That is at 10 a.m. in the New York session. We opened up right here at 4:30. That is 9:30 in the New York session. We had this range here. The opening range ends at 5. That's when the news comes in right here. So ISM services come in right here. So while we were trading inside this range here, you can see we went higher. We formed the first presented fair value gap right here. So it was a BC. We came through that BC, took out this low here, and then we moved higher through the first presented fair value gap again. I talked about this entry right here. You can see this candlestick here closes right here. opens up right here, trades into this inefficiency, and then we had a run into this buy side here. Relative equal highs here. There's another old high here that was formed in late London. So we moved into this here. These are very nice trade. I talked about this from 23,093. It was around 90 level. We've run that, we've run down, and then you can anticipate 23,128 or 130. Very, very nice 30 points right there. So this was beautiful. So after running into this high here, obviously we were forming another high in regards to the daily range. We had this decline here into the first position of a value gap, and then we had these other movement higher. We beat around this range here, and then we had this run higher. After running into this here, I think this was the present weekly high, and then we had that decline from that weekly high, trading into this range once more. So we took out this sell side, and then we had this really difficult price action to really anticipate, especially when you don't have a bias. This is really difficult price action. It's not really easy. It's not really easy. So after running lower, we had this buy side. We have Tuesday's opening range gap. We had this movement higher, running higher into that buy side above that high. There, you can see the silver bullet runs from right from 5 right here to 6. That is from 10 to 11 in the New York session AM. And you can see all we see is this run lower and then this run higher. There's no entry into a gap and then a movement higher. So it really tells me one or two things. Price is really difficult. We had ISM services only. That was on Tuesday. Yesterday we had no news. Actually, we had no news yesterday. This is poor price action. Poor price action. Poor price action. So we ran higher into this Tuesday's opening range gap. You can see the midpoint of Tuesday's opening range gap, and then this is the bearish order block level that I highlighted. This is the low, bearish order block low, and then the bearish order block high right there. So we ran into that bearish order block. You can really anticipate something like a rejection from that bearish order block, but you can obviously see that price has an interest to go higher. So we ran higher. This was the lunch hour session now. From right here, lunch hour kicks in, and then you can see the consolidation right here. You see this lunch hour. There's nothing really, nothing here in the lunch hour. So going into the afternoon session, yesterday's price action. Yesterday ended right here at 8:30. You can see the first present value gap right here. We had this movement here, movement lower after taking out this swing low. Then we had this projected price action run higher, trading into this last week's new week opening up. This is interesting. Price can deliver what you are expected to deliver, but it's not really going to give you a very nice entry mechanism for you to achieve. I mean, to expect something out of price. So we're into this last week new week opening gap, and then yesterday now the after session after running into these highs, we're expecting for price to form the daily high and then move from the daily high and close away from the daily high. Most of the time that's what price does. Most of the time, if not all the time. So you can obviously see we ran into that high, higher high, lower high, and then we moved lower. Market on close orders macro kicks in right. You can see we opened up on this low here, beat around this area, touched the first present of a value gap. This was actually not even the first present of a value gap, or is it? It's not. It's not. The first present of a value gap was down here. This is just a normal inefficiency in price. These are all PD arrays that I normally study when tape reading or trying to figure out what price wants to do. So we ran into this level right there, and then we ran lower into the close. There's nothing really here that could be of interesting to me other than the narrative that we formed the daily high. We're anticipating price to run away from the daily high and then close a little bit lower from the daily high. So this week has really been not really very nice so far, but we're gonna see what we have going into today's price action and tomorrow's price action. So today we opened up. You can see a new day opening up right here. We closed up here. We opened up right here. It's quite a small new day opening up. Price has an interest to run into this buy side together with this consequent encroachment. We ran lower after trading below this sell side relative equal lows, and then we propagated into this high here in Asia today, and then we went into the midpoint of last week's new week opening gap. So we beat around today in Asia, formed this low here, moved high above this high, and you can see today's price action going into today midnight New York opening price right there. We move lower into the midpoint. Look at the midpoint of the last week's new week opening gap. Interesting, right? And then we move higher. Today London opens up right here, and then we had this price beating around this area. We ran into these relative equal highs right here. You can obviously see the movement right here. This is wild. So we move lower, and then we have this larger price swing here trading into 23,400, and finally trading into 23,500 right here, going into the changeover between London's open close and together with the New York session open. So that's really it. We formed a new weekly high, something to talk about once again. We formed this weekly high here. We moved lower, moved higher here, and we're currently consolidating inside this range. I don't really expect much after I've already talked about these. I don't really expect much other than to see price try to go into this buy side or try to reach into this low. It's really difficult to figure out what's really the real bias that price wants to do other than follow the higher time frame bias. We have the buy side here. Very interesting price point to see whether price has an interest to go above 20,728. So it's really a difficult week. I've already explained why it is so. There are no high impact news on the dollar index to start propelling price to specific price points. Especially yesterday, there was no really a high impact news for price to use and offer efficient price delivery. That is a premium or a discount market. But relative equal highs, relative equal lows, you can obviously see they were traded into just like usual. So today is Thursday. I don't really think I talked about what day it is. Thursday, Thursday, 7th of August, 2025. I wanted really to look at price this early New York session, and then I will also look at the index futures opening price, but I'll not really stay a lot. I'll not stay for a longer time because I have to train today. I have to play hockey today. I have to play hockey today. So we're still trading at 23,511. US 500, we are still trading at 6,388.5. Very interesting place to be today. Normally in August, I expect weakness. I expect weakness in August. That's what happened last week on Thursday and Friday. To support the idea of the weekly range, the way the architecture of the weekly range is formed. We have the open, we have the low, we have the high, we have the close. So when do you expect the weekly high? When you're bullish, you expect the weekly high to form around Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So that means going into Wednesday, going into Wednesday afternoon session or Thursday morning sessions, we're anticipating a weekly high. And so far, we have the weekly high right here. This week, current weekly high, 23,542 for NAS 100 and 6,404 for US 500. I've talked about where I anticipate price to go into, and it's really difficult, especially in US 500. We have the new week, last week's new week opening gap right here, and we have this 15-minute efficiency together with the Selside relative equal lows right here. So two PD arrays that I anticipate price to trade into one of them. I don't really know which we will trade into first. We just have to wait and see what price does. So I want to go to a lower time frame, 1 minute, especially in Nasdaq, and then we look at what we have. Let me just expand this like this, and then we'll see what we have on the lower time frame. I'm looking at this sell side imbalance price and efficiency here. Very interesting. We've gone through it. You can see we've closed through that inefficiency. This is interesting. This is communicating to me that we are bullish still, or we might end trading into this premium week and even this buy side. But let's see what price does going into this opening range. Not opening range, but opening hour. So US 500 does not really look good on a lower time frame. Let's look at NAS 100 lower time frame, 1 minute. That's what I mean. NAS 100 does not really either look good. Let's just stick with the 5 minute. We're gonna start with this what this 5 minute chart does to regards to this buy and in regards to this internal range liquidity pool resting below 23,450s. So US 500, we've gone below the opening price. I talked about how US 500 is a little bit weaker. Nasdaq was the one that was a little bit weaker if you look at the 15-minute chart. And I think the reason is US 500 as a target has a new week opening gap on a premium, and it had to reach into that last week's new week opening gap. NAS 100 were above the last week's new week opening gap. I don't really think it has an interest for price to be really bullish. You can see the last week's new week opening gap right here. I don't really think NAS 100 has an interest for price to want to reach higher like US 500 does. That's why if you look at even the 1 hour chart like this, 1 hour chart for US 500, if you look at these candlesticks for today, they're really protruded to the upside because they had an interest to reach into this last week's new week opening gap. While NAS 100 had no interest for price to reach into this high, even though we have a buy side liquidity pool resting above 23,700. So We're gonna stick with the 5 minute chart, and we're gonna look at how price performs going into the opening price today for index futures. Finally, you need to come out of the shell and just talk about price proudly, like you knew it was going to do whatever it does, and try to predict it even in front of anyone, even though you're wrong, even though you're correct. Try to predict this. Try to predict price without fear. Talk about price with fear, like you knew it was going to do whatever it does. I mean, it can only move upwards or downwards. Prices can only go up or down, but where you decide to buy it or where you decide to sell it is all that matters. Is all that matters. No one cares if you buy it at a premium. I mean, that's you buying it at a premium. That's anybody buying it at a premium. That's somebody buying it at a premium. No one cares. But price must move into a premium. It must move into a discount, and you must act accordingly when it does these kind of things. And these kind of things can only be you can only implement whatever you talk about, or whatever narrative that you come up with. You can only execute it while you're looking at price. Somebody may decide to go the swing trading way, but swing trading really, I lack the impatience to wait for price to run, or rather to wait for my positions to run into days and weeks. I'm not really there yet. I'm not really there yet. That's just the honest truth. I'm not there yet. So if you look at our 5 minute chart for US 500, we went into the opening price, and now we've recovered most part of that 5 minute range for the previous candlestick. Same thing in NAS 100. NAS 100 has not touched the opening price for the New York session open, but the last 5 minutes, if you look at this candlestick here, down candlestick, and then we've made the majority of the movement higher. This bullishness, and this is communicating to me that it has an interest to move into this high. If we move into this high here, especially going into the opening price at 4:30, that is 9:30 a.m. the New York session, I'll be looking for lower prices because I anticipate for price to form the other end of the weekly range in today, on Thursday. That is today. So I'm gonna see where we open today, and that's just going to be it. And then I'll go to my hockey training. So we're moving higher to 3,519. We're gonna go into 520s. US 500, 6,389. I want to see 6,390s, and then we'll see whether we run into 6,400 this morning, rather this afternoon, my time. I used to watch ICT last year, and he used to come in front of price at around this time or earlier New York session open. Whenever there was something selling that he wanted to talk about, and I used to love watch him talk about this candlestick one by one, how they form, when they form. I used to love um, I used to love when he talks about them. He used to predict this candlestick day by day, and especially the morning session. That was so interesting. It was so interesting. I learned a lot. I learned about how gaps are supposed to be treated in price. I learned about a session bias. I learned about the weekly bias. I learned about how do we tape read and see through weeks. I learned about the new week opening gap, the new day opening gaps, the volume imbalance, and all these PDRAs that is presented on his repertoire. It was really such an interesting time to be a student of price because I learned a lot. I learned a lot. I learned time distortion. I learned the opening range. I learned the overall ranges in price, especially on the higher time frame, weekly ranges, daily ranges, how to treat the daily ranges with open float, quarterly shifts, and all these ideas. I learned about seasonal tendencies and institutional order flow and market structure. I mean, it's really a lot. It's really a lot that you cannot really keep quiet and try to figure all that out. You must talk about it. You must talk about it. I learned about how to expect price whenever we have any news events, whenever we have NFP, whenever we have CPI, unemployment claims, FOMC, and all this kind of news. Not forgetting President Trump's speeches. His Trump's speeches are very volatile, and if you don't really know what you're doing, you might end up regretting it. I learned about risk off and risk on. When the dollar index move higher, everything else we are anticipating it to move lower. When the dollar index moves lower, we are anticipating everything else to move higher. So it was really a great time to be a student of price and to love learning. So NAS 100, 23,520, we've reached into 520s. We were just in 505s, 510s. We're trading a 520 now. I want to see whether it has an interest to run into 23,500s. US 500, we're trading at 6,389. That is 320s. I want to see whether price has an interest to trade into last week's new week opening gap. That rests on 6,395.8. So these were anticipate price to start running into, especially this Selside balance price inefficiency. We have a swing low here. We ran lower. Not really very interesting, but it's right there. It's right there. We can see the swing low here. We can see the shift in market structure here. So if we move into this inefficiency, I will really expect price to find weakness and start trading lower. But we'll see whatever it does because we have a PDRA that is last week's new week opening gap on the premium. So we can as well run into these bicep above 6,408, below 408 level. So the real level bicep is for 4.8. Very interesting. So that's 100. We're trading still at 520s. US 500, we're trading at 390s. Sometimes this shit is tiresome, but you don't really have to escape anything. You just have to stay. Look at price until you're tired, until you're worn out. Spend hours. Spend look. So we're trading at 520 still. US 500, 390.5. We're not really moving out of that these price points. That is what is called time distortion. Everybody is going to be impatient and try to trade something just for the moment of. Others are trying to second guess it. Others are trying their luck. There's no luck in trading if you're profitable. I don't really think there's luck. It's just you having a system, very nice money management. You're good to go. Well, we moved lower into 512s in NAS 100. We're really trading inside the range, inside the buy side and today's New York sessions opening price. I like the fact that we're trading above it. The time is 4:12 p.m. That is 9:12. We still have 17 minutes or so, and then we'll see the opening price. $23,510 in NAS 100, 6,388.5 US 500. Well, let's go back to a 15-minute chart and try to look at what we've talked about. 15-minute chart for NAS 100. If we look at it again, we're trading at a premium level in regards to the weekly range and regards to the daily range. This is very nice movement. It's not really enough movement, but it's nice movement to the upside in London today. We made a swing high here in this new week open. That is last week's new week opening gap, and then we came off of the highs here, trading into the changeover from London going to the New York session. I've talked about these typical lows here. Price can do as much as trading into these lows here. But before we go into these typical lows, we have the buy side imbalances and inefficiency right here. So we will expect price to trade through this inefficiency and offer sell side delivery. This inefficiency on itself, the low of this candlestick is the 6,377.8. This candlestick's high, that is 373.8. So from, I mean, 0.5, 373 to 378, those are 5 points. So this inefficiency is 5 points, and it's an inefficiency, and it's a basic. So we'll anticipate price to trade through that basic end of a sell side as it goes into these sales, sell side liquidity typical lows right here. So my interest for today, we've met the weekly high right here, the current weekly high right here, and I expect price to start moving lower and seek discount PDRAs. Same thing in NAS 100. We can obviously see we have relative lows here that we left this low from London together with the Asian low right here. We moved higher in London today. We have the inefficiency here. We expect price to start moving lower and offer sell side delivery. So immediately my eye goes into these lows that we've made just right away. This low for US 500, you can see it's 6,383.5 as sell side, and then we have for NAS 100, we have this low right there. So sell side rests below this 480.9 level. So back into the 5-minute chart that we've been looking at right here and right here. So I've reminded myself of what I'm focused on, what I'm looking for, and I'm looking for price to behave in a certain way so that I can be sure that it's going to trade into these price points. I've talked about how NAS 100 is a little bit weaker than US because 200 is has an interest to move in, had an interest, let me say, had an interest to move into this new week opening gap. So we've opened up right here, and I've been only talking inside this price action here. We've not really done much movement outside this high and this low. In NAS 100, we opened up right here. We've not really moved a lot outside this high here and this low. So the buy side and sell side liquidity pools are clearly defined. They're not really ambiguous. There's their price point that you can see above all highs, rests buy side, below all lows, rest sell side. That's trading 101 basically. The people who have orders above this high here to be tripped in to go in on a long, and I'm not really with that idea because it's not really consistent. It's not consistent. I've tried to see when price goes above an old high, most times it tends to come back into the range. So somebody cannot really come and convince me that we'll go above this high here and go and try to buy it. I mean, I'm not going to buy a premium market. It's obvious that inside today's range, we've gone into this high here and we're inside a premium. Even though we have this objective right here, that is 23,720, it's really difficult to be going long at a certain place like this. I mean, it's the New York session. We are anticipating that daily low or that Judah swing. That is what I'm anticipating. If we have a Judah swing that goes below into this sell side, and then we reject this low, if we run lower and take out this low and reject it, then I'll anticipate price to move high above into this buy side, and then again into around 23,600, if not 23,700. So that is what ideally I expect from price today. But I've talked about the weekly range. I've talked about how the weekly highs and lows form, and what I expect when the weekly highs and lows form, and how they form. It's really a difficult combination when price trades every single day in different situations. But I'm only looking for some certain things to really align with what I'm looking for. Daily bias, session bias, inefficiencies, PDRAs, and those kind of things. So when you stay with me for long and you see how I talk about price, be be asked to what I talk about and to what nearly most of the smart money traders how they talk about how they've learned from ICT. You learn how anyone that looks at these markets expects the market to behave. So the time is 4:21. That is 9:21. We have 9 minutes, and then we'll have the opening price. Nothing really. Now, on other days, interest present 8:30 a.m. time, but today I don't really have an interest like that. We're just going to watch price, and then we'll see where we open up. I'll stay with the price around 10 minutes going into price, and I'll look at the 15-minute chart. We'll see whether we have um, anything that we need to look at. Let's look at a 1 hour chart briefly on Nasdaq. So if you look at the 1 hour chart in Nasdaq, we've been moving higher from this range here. Starting from Monday, we moved higher. Tuesday, we had this decline here. Then going to yesterday's price action, we had this movement high. So we have this bicep resting above this old high. We can anticipate price to move into that bicep. That's 23,700. That's very ideal. Very, very ideal. I was really expecting price to start moving lower after we formed this 1 hour swing high, but it really it's not really interested to move lower. We have inefficiencies on this on the lower end of this sell side, and obviously we are going into the morning session. So the morning session, together with the macros that come inside the morning session, they are normally good against everybody that was profitable with whatever they did with their positions. So it's really easy to do what I've talked about. You're just going into the chart. You're looking for relative equal lows. If we've been moving higher for most part of the day or most part of the previous sessions, like yesterday, now we moved higher. In today's London session, we moved higher. So we are going into the next New York session. Most probably, whatever price will do is go above an old high and try to come back into the range. Most probably, that's what it does. I mean, that's what it will do. So it's Thursday. Very interesting. Time to be going short, especially now that we are anticipating that weekly high, and that's what I'm looking for. That's basically what I'm looking for. So the time is 4:24. We still have 6 minutes or so and some seconds, and then we'll have the regular trading hours for futures. Let's see if this. So 9:25 a.m. New York time. You can see how these 9:25 candlestick has opened. We've opened with a volume imbalance and we're moving lower. So far, so good. Let's look at a 1 minute for both US 500 and NAS 100. Actually, US 500, I'll still stick with the 5 minute and NAS 100. Look at this 1 minute, just like this. So you can see the opening price here. We've been beating going higher, very difficult price action. And now we have this range. There are no really relative equal highs or relative equal lows that I can stick to where price is going to go. Otherwise, I'm waiting for it to do something extra to tell me where it wants to reach into. So let's still look at a 5 minute chart like this. So US 500, we've still touched the opening price, New York session opening price, 6,387. NAS 100, 23,508, 23,508. We've been beating around 508, 510s, 520s, 510s, 510s, 520s. Let's see if we'll go into 550s in the next 3 minutes. Again, we've had unemployment claims. It has not really been interesting. Normally, unemployment claims is normally interesting when there's a high impact news, when it's a week for a high impact news event. But silent weeks like this week, really difficult price action. I can stop talking about March. The end of March had 2 weeks that had no really interesting news events, and it was really, really difficult to be going short or long inside the week, those 2 weeks. It was really difficult trying to look for trades inside those 2 weeks. So let's look at US 500. What is trying to do? We have 2 minutes remaining. US 500 is running into its sell side. 6,383 now. Sell side resting on below that 6,383. NAS 100, we're moving lower. So US 500, we've touched sell side below 383 level. And I expect it to move into the 15-minute buy side imbalances and efficiency that is on the discount. One minute, 1 minute, and then the bell rings. So I talked about this sell side here. I talked about if we go below this sell side, I want to see how price reacts to how it trades below this low. Because if we are really, really bullish, then I'll anticipate price to check that sell side and expect smart money to buy into this sell side, and then we start moving higher. So if we remain to be weak and remain to pause, I mean to print down close candles, then we must be really weak. But if we remain bullish, we start seeing swing lows that price has no interest to take out, then we'll be bullish. So there we go. We've had the opening price. You can see how volatility comes into the marketplace. Normally, I am supposed to wait for the opening range. That is the first 30 minutes for price. For volatility to come into the marketplace and price will do whatever it does. That's normally what I normally do. But there's some scenarios that price tells you that it's going to go into some certain obvious price points, and you can do something inside the opening range or do something just before, I mean, the opening price. But today there's nothing like that. We're just looking at price, looking at the inefficiencies, looking at PDRAs on the premium and discount, and just try to anticipate the narrative of the weekly range to form. So we've taken this sell side. I want to see how if price has an interest to move into these 15-minute buy side balances and efficiency. So NAS 100, we traded into the opening price, and you can see how it's still inside this range and has no interest to move outside the sell side or the buy side. US 500, we've already moved into this low here already. So I want to go into a 1 minute time frame in NAS 100, and then we'll try to see whether we formed the first present of a while ago. So another thing that I normally love looking at is the opening range. So it's clear that, I mean, it's obvious. We can use our eyes and we can see that we've opened up on a very big premium opening range gap in both indices. You can see where we closed yesterday, right here, actually right here, and today we've opened up right here. So these are very huge premium opening range gap. Actually, let me just go back to a 15-minute chart and try, I mean, outline the today's opening range gap. So this is the opening price. And this opening range gap is dim gray because of premium. And we can all see the yesterday's closing price right here. There we go. So if we're really bullish, we'll not expect price to start trading into the equivalent of today's opening range gap. We'll not expect such price delivery. We'll only expect price to be bullish and start moving higher. So there we go. Let's look at a 5-minute chart now. So we have today's opening range gap there. We have the midpoint of today's opening range gap right here. Now 100, we have the opening price right here. Remember I talked about that buy side. You can see we are moving higher. 23,530s. We're going to form another high. Just annotate that. So it will really be interesting how we trade after we take out this buy side. Really be interesting. So there we go. I want to annotate also the midpoint. So this is 23,408.8, and that is that. There we go. Ideally, I'm supposed to highlight the quadrants of this opening range gap, but I'm not really going to do that today. So you can see how price is still inside this range here in NAS 100. We've not really moved outside this range. I'm going to go into a 1 minute time frame in NAS 100, and we're going to see the first present for for today. So we've opened up right here. You can see this the opening price. We moved higher, very small inefficiency. That's not really interesting to me. We've not yet formed the first present for today. in NAS 100. In US 500, we can clearly see the first present of value for today. Let's extend this out. There we go. And then let's go back into a 5 minute. And you can see this whole range is the first present for value gap for today in US 500. So US 500 generally is weak. We formed the weekly high here. We're trading inside this range. I'm anticipating price to start trading into this inefficiency because we have a premium opening range gap, and gaps are most of the time gaps, especially midpoint, they are always traded into. They are always traded into. So you look at NAS 100. Let's look at a 5 minute chart. It's better on a 5 minute. So we've not touched this buy side, we've not touched this sell side as in trend. But we can clearly tell that US 500 is a little more weak. If you look at this high here together with this high, these are higher high than this one, higher high than this one in NAS 100, but the amount of highness that this one is in is not really like US 500, and you can see US 500 is even trading lower. It's a lot more weaker than NAS 100. So the time is 4:37 minutes in the operating price. I don't really have much time to stay here. I've already talked about what I anticipate. Buys, if we go above this buy side, I'll anticipate a sell from this buy side here because we are too much on a premium. I've talked about that. If you start trading lower below this sell side, I'll not be interested in price unless we trade into this midpoint of today's opening range gap and even lower into this discount new week opening gap for last week, and maybe reach into this relative equal low sell side. Otherwise, price is really trading inside this range. In NAS 100, I don't really think it has an interest to reach into this buy side or this sell side. So looking at the 1 minute chart, you can see the sell side is here, buy side is right here. So these are the 2 price points that will trigger a movement in Nasdaq. So let's look at a 15-minute chart for Nasdaq, and we'll see where we are. So you can see the 15-minute chart for Nasdaq. We made a swing high here, went lower. We've been really struggling to move higher. You can see the weeks. These are a lot of weeks. These are so much, a lot of weeks, too much, right? We've been really struggling on this high. My interest is on this buy side. I'll really be interested how price behaves after we go above this high, 23,542.4. So we're forming the first present of a value gap right here. Let me just I'll highlight this here. You can see how we're moving higher. So buy side right there on the crosshairs. Look at the 5-minute chart. You can see that. Buy side right there. So we are so close into that buy side. So you can see the first present of a value gap here for today. This here. So right there we've touched that buy side. Very interesting price action. And you can see the first present of a value gap for today plus these volume imbalances. So very nice, beautiful run higher into this, resting into this high. So this really a deep premium to me. It's really a deep premium. It's really difficult for me to be buying is it that deep premium? Honestly speaking, it's really difficult. What I'm anticipating now is an inversion of a valley gap, and then we start rolling lower into this sell side. So I'll dim this out. So buy side has been taken out. Very interesting. Sometimes we can just go higher and higher, but that's just not what I'm anticipating with today's price action. It's Thursday. It's Thursday. This almost trading nearly the daily high for today. So it's really difficult to anticipate a lot more higher, higher prices. So we've headed into June 3,565. I mean, 545. The current daily high, or the current high that has been formed is 23,552.1. Very interesting, 52.1. And you can see how price is trading. This kind of trading here is not really interesting. I was really hoping for price to go through this buy side here and form kind of like an inefficiency and then start trading lower. But the way it is behaving right here is behaving some kind of way that it wants to go again above this high. So we're back to say this inefficiency. Let's look at that, and then we can obviously see the fast present figure. So let's say we'll touch this fast present figure gap and start moving higher again. Looking at US 500, you can see how it's really weak. We've gone through the fast present figure gap. Very interesting. Look, you can see the volume imbalances. I talked about this sell side. I talked about how price has to go into this buy side and then we'll anticipate rejection and then run into this relative equal loss right here. US 500, we've not really gone into these highs, not really gone much into these highs. We've just taken these very small previous high here, and then you can see how it's weak now. So look at where the candles are closing in now. So that is rejection. You can see how it's rejecting lower. So sell side rests right here. So immediately we take out this sell side. That will be it for me for tape reading today, and then we'll see the kind of price action that we have going into the afternoon session. So we've touched the opening price again. Remember, we have a premium opening range gap. The midpoint of today's premium opening range gap is right here. The upper quadrant of today's opening range gap is right here. It's around 23,457.1. So it might be reaching into this. This is the upper quadrant of today's opening range gap. Today's opening range gap is a huge gap. So it's very interesting for price to wanna retrace inside this gap here. So let's watch the first present value gap here, and let's see if we'll reject these inefficiency and start trading into this sell side below 23,480. So immediately we've gone through this here. This for me will be a sell right there in the first present value gap low. That candlestick is closed. That is 23,512. 512 right there is a sell. We can all see the sell side imbalance based on this efficiency. Put the stop on the upper portion of this inefficiency around here. That's a sell right there. Put the stop here and then anticipate that sell side liquidity pool here to be taken out. And then from 23,512, anticipate 23,457 or 23,460s. You can see rejection here. very nice. That's what you want to see if you're going short. And you can see US 500 is confirming that we are weak. And where we're trading into this 15-minute inefficiency that I talked about right here. So remember the opening range gap that is on a premium. We have the midpoint here, 6,366. That's where we are gonna reach into. So sell side right here, 23,479. We've moved already from 512. We moved into 490s. So 500 are 12 points. 500 490 is another 10 points. 10 plus 12, that is 24 points. And then let's expect 23,480s right here. So we are on the opening price right there. So I'm expecting these sell side here. Let's look at the 15-minute chart. Very nice swing high here. And we have these buy side balances and efficiency that are outlined right here. This is where we'll trade into. Boom! There we go. So we've managed to get into that sell side. Everything outlined. Just I've talked about the fast value gap sell. I've talked about the sell side here. And that's really it. That could be it for me for today. This is it. We ran into buy side. We had the first present value gap here. Buy side is taken in. We start lower. You can see how price closes this present value gap, runs higher into that 512 level, and then finally trading into 480 and through it. So that's a sell right there. Boom, right there. So again, looking at this screenshot, you can see we moved higher into that buy side. I outlined this. I talked about this. We moved lower out from that buy side. You can see the rejection. You can see the rejection right there. That is smart money selling it above this buy side. So they sell it. You can see the rejection right here into the first present value gap right there. You can see how we hit in. I talked about this sell, 512 sell, taking it into 480s. I don't really want to explain a lot about this. I'll talk about it more coming in the afternoon session. So where can we reach into? We have the opening, the premium opening range gap. This is the upper quadrant of the premium opening range gap. So 23,457.1, and then we have the discount 15-minute buy side balances and efficiency right here. That's where I would aim for price. So I think that's really it. Wasting any time. Look at US 500. We managed to get into this 15-minute efficiency that I talked about here. Boom, right there. And next is the opening range gap, consequent encroachment. That is the midpoint. So that's really it for me for today. Until the afternoon session. Adios.